You know, when you buy something online, there is this underlying expectation of perfect packaging,
Oh, yeah, always.
right? Like you click a button, and the next day, a perfectly rectangular, safely taped up cardboard box arrives right on your doorstep.
It's simple, it's neat.
It is. And you know exactly what's inside. There are no surprises, it fits neatly on the porch, and it's, incredibly easy to handle.
It's completely predictable. I mean, the edges are perfectly squared off, the label is clear, and the barcode tells everybody handling it exactly where it belongs.
Exactly. We love that convenience. We expect the things in our lives to be easily categorizable. But then you step into the world of human identity, and suddenly that neat little brown box just does not work anymore.
No, it really doesn't. Not even a little bit.
Not at all. We're looking at a psychological landscape today that is just bursting at the seams. It's messy, it's contradictory, and it absolutely refuses to be taken down.
Right, it pushes back.
Yeah. So if you are listening to this right now, and you have ever felt like you act like a completely different person at work versus, say, when you were with your family.
Or out with your friends.
Yes, or out with your friends. And if you have ever secretly worried that shifting those gears makes you somehow, I don't know, fake or hypocritical, this deep dive is for you.
It's a huge relief, honestly, the stuff we're going to get into.
It really is. Today's mission is that we are jumping into a set of fascinating creative reflections, personal notes, and character breakdowns centered around a figure named Mac.
And through his notes, we are going to explore a radical new framework for understanding the contradictory parts of your own identity.
Because we aren't just looking at one single personality today.
No, not at all. We are exploring a psychological council.
A whole council.
Yeah, we are looking at a system of 11 distinct subpersonalities that all live inside Mac's head. 11 of them. And to understand why a person would mentally compartmentalize themselves to this degree, we really have to understand the sociological reality that Mac is navigating every single day.
Right, because I was reading through these source notes, and Mac describes himself as the blurred, like the black nerd.
Right.
He has this walking contradiction, at least in the eyes of society. He is a jock, but he's also a nerd.
He's a performer who loves the spotlight.
Yeah, but he's also an overthinker and a really lonely observer,
And that creates a massive amount of cultural friction. Mac carries this heavy, heavy internal dissonance.
Because of how people perceive him.
Exactly. The notes outline how he constantly deals with the feeling of being, quote, too black for certain corporate or academic rooms, but then not black enough for others.
Which has to be exhausting.
It is. He feels too nerdy for the jocks, but then too jock-coded for the nerds. He is too funny to be taken seriously, but too sensitive to feel safe in traditional masculinity.
Man, think about the sheer cognitive load of that existence. He's just constantly translating himself.
And when you are constantly translating yourself, you start to feel like a product.
Which is why he explicitly writes that he refuses to be Amazon Primed.
I love that phrase.
It's so good. He absolutely refuses to package his soul for next-day approval. He refuses to offer a simplified, palatable, customer service voice version of himself just because his whole self is culturally complicated.
That phrase, customer service voice, is so striking because we all have one, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's that slightly higher, overly polite pitch we use to smooth over interactions. We use it to make sure nobody feels threatened by us.
Like, hi there, how can I help you today?
Exactly. But Mac's underlying philosophy demands that he return that package to sender. He refuses to split himself into acceptable pieces just to make the world more comfortable.
He has a specific name for this governing rule book, right?
Yes, he calls it radical authenticity.
Okay, I have to push back here right out of the gate.
Sure, go for it.
I hear the phrase radical authenticity and a massive red flag immediately goes up for me.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Right, because isn't just being real or being authentic usually the excuse that people use to act terribly and avoid growing?
Oh, 100%.
You know the type.
Yeah.
The person who insults you and then says, hey, I'm just blunt, I'm just being real, deal with it.
That is exactly the trap. And it is a trap the source text is acutely aware of, actually.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it explicitly defines that toxic behavior as the shadow version of radical authenticity.
It's a shadow version, okay.
Right. It's when being real becomes a brand. It becomes a shield used to dodge deeper vulnerability. The notes actually acknowledge that Matt can sometimes mistake his own volume or his rebellion for truth.
Using them to deflect from his insecurities.
Exactly. Radical authenticity fails the moment it turns into just another performance.
So if using realness as a weapon to avoid accountability is the shadow version, What does the healthy version actually look like in practice?
Well, the healthy, mature version is about freedom through wholeness. It means you stop performing just to be liked, but you don't use your rough edges as armor to keep people away.
So it's a balance.
Yeah. The mature philosophy the text arrives at is basically be real, but do not use realness as armor. Be funny, but do not disappear into the joke. Be loud, but know what truth you are amplifying.
Man, do not disappear into the joke. That hits hard.
It really does.
Because you can see him trying to process this in the real world through his music. There's a whole section in the sources here tied to a reflection on root beer records.
Yes, his music is a huge part of this.
He is channeling all this internal dissonance and racialized perception into rap tracks. He has a song called In My Skin, where he is actively working through the effort of just, feeling at home in his own body.
And then he has tracks like Class Clown and Wither and Bloom, where he's confronting his loneliness.
He is taking these massive, messy concepts that are just too heavy to say in a normal conversation, and he is giving them rhythm.
He is attempting to turn category confusion into art. But the thing to remember is the music is just the external output.
Right, it's what the world sees.
Exactly. The real magic is what is happening inside the factory. To understand how this complex, radical authenticity actually survives a crowded room or a tense meeting or a vulnerable conversation, we have to look at the internal counsel.
We have to meet the sub-personalities.
Yes. All 11 of them.
Let's get into it. The text groups them implicitly by their functions, and I want to start with the trio designed to manage the room, the social navigators.
Pete, Dial, and Fernando.
Let's start with Pete Peters, the class clown. The notes refer to him as the 11th witness figure. I'm going to need you to pause right there.
Yeah.
Because what does 11th witness actually mean in a psychological context?
It is a really fascinating concept. Okay, imagine a room with 10 people in it.
Okay, 10 people.
And an uncomfortable truth is hanging in the air. Like maybe the boss just made a deeply unfair demand, or there's this palpable tension between two friends.
You can cut the tension with a knife.
Right. 10 people are witnessing it, but they're all looking down at their shoes, pretending it isn't happening.
Because nobody wants to be the one to bring it up.
Yeah. Exactly. So the 11th witness is the psychological mechanism that steps outside of that paralyzing social contract and names the elephant in the room.
Oh, wow.
And for Pete, he does it through humor. He uses comedy for social repair, belonging, and necessary disruption.
That makes so much sense. He diffuses the tension that everyone else is choking on.
Yeah, he gives everyone permission to breathe.
I was looking at Pete's specific details in the text, and his quote is, "A joke is just a truth wearing sneakers."
Think about the mechanics of that metaphor for a second.
Yeah, unpack that.
A truth wearing dress shoes is heavy. It stomps into a room, it demands attention, and it usually makes people extremely defensive.
Right, because it's formal and intimidating.
But truth in sneakers, it is agile. It slips past your ego and your defenses before you even realize you've absorbed a heavy reality.
And his physical symbol is a joke notebook disguised as a boring class planner.
Which perfectly encapsulates Pete's whole vibe.
It really does. He is constantly studying the room, plotting the humor, doing the architectural work of comedy, but he has to hide the effort so it looks effortless.
He can't let them see him working on the joke.
No, it has to seem spontaneous. But here is the detail that actually broke my heart a little bit.
Hidden quirk.
Yes. The text lists a hidden quirk for him, and it says, he remembers exactly which jokes made lonely people laugh.
Yeah, that one gets me too. That is the deep empathy driving the comedy.
He cares so much.
Pete isn't just trying to be the center of attention, you know? He is a social repair mechanism. He is trying to throw a lifeline to people who feel invisible.
But if we look at the psychological toll of this, Pete has a massive shadow side, doesn't he?
Huge. If his job is to constantly keep everyone comfortable and laughing, his shadow is a profound fear of sincerity.
Right. If you were always the punchline, nobody ever asks you how you are actually doing.
Exactly. The immature version of Pete operates on a terrifying logic. He basically thinks if they are laughing, they won't leave.
Oh, man. So it's about abandonment.
It is the fear of abandonment completely masking itself as entertainment. He turns himself into a jester so that people do not look deeper into Mac's actual insecurities.
So the mature evolution for Pete is realizing I can be funny, but I can still be honest. I don't have to vanish into the bit just to justify my presence in the room.
Exactly. He learns to just be present.
But Pete can only take you so far. I mean, Pete can diffuse an awkward dinner party, but Pete cannot lead a corporate team.
No, you don't want the class clown running the board meeting.
Right. He can't step up when Mac needs to project absolute, unwavering competence. For that, the system tags in Dial.
Dial Elfcow, the cool kid.
Yes.
Dial is the polished armor. He represents trust, social confidence, and pristine leadership. He has that classic cool kid aura.
But usually when we think of a cool kid in pop culture, we picture the guy leaning against the lockers in a leather jacket, acting totally aloof, pretending he doesn't care about anything.
The whole too cool for school trope.
Yeah, exactly. But Dial isn't like that at all. The text reveals that Dial's core is surprisingly responsible.
He operates on a very specific principle. He believes if people trust you, you owe them steadiness.
Which is a heavy burden for a marginalized person navigating professional or academic spaces.
It's an immense burden. Dial turns charisma into social reliability. Let's put him in a hypothetical scenario to really see that.
Okay, let's do it.
Imagine Mac is in a tense boardroom. He is the only black man in the room. A microaggression occurs. Maybe someone subtly questions his expertise in front of the whole team.
Okay, so Pete would try to make a joke to deflect it, right?
Right, Pete would try to ease the tension. But Dial straightens his posture. He doesn't raise his voice. He looks the person dead in the eye and calmly, with absolute pristine polish, redirects a conversation and asserts dominance without ever giving them the satisfaction of an angry reaction.
Wow. He just makes competence look completely effortless.
He does.
The notes say his symbols are a silver wristwatch and a classic cheeseburger.
Yeah.
He's grounded, he's classic, and he always has backup plans to make sure things run smoothly.
He's the guy you want in a crisis.
But maintaining that level of pristine polish, I mean, that it has to be exhausting, right? The text notes his deepest fear is losing trust or looking like he doesn't have it all together.
And there is his shadow. The shadow of Dial is becoming hyper-image conscious.
He cares too much about how he looks.
Well, the immature Dial is terrified of admitting uncertainty. He believes that if he ever lets them see him sweat, he loses his value completely.
We have to be perfect.
So coolness mutates into a form of emotional distance. He becomes this beautifully polished statue that nobody can actually connect with.
The mature Dial has to learn that being trusted means being honest, not being flawless.
Exactly. A vulnerability actually builds trust.
Which brings us to the third social navigator. Because after a long day of Dial holding it together in the boardroom and Pete trying to keep everyone smiling, Mac's brain is fried.
He's running on empty.
He needs to decompress. And that is when Fernando Pizzi steps in, the himbo.
Yes. Fernando represents pure, big-hearted simplicity. He is Mac's warm, lovable, outdoorsy side. He brings physical joy and a friendly, uncomplicated presence.
Now, I have to admit, when I first read the himbo in these notes, I was skeptical.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, I thought, is this just intellectual laziness? Is Fernando the part of Mac that just checks out, refuses to read the news, and ignores the world's problems?
I mean, it is a completely fair assumption based on the word himbo, but if you look closely at the framework, Fernando is not unintelligent.
He's not.
No. He is emotionally uncomplicated in a profoundly healing way. Think about the cognitive load we just discussed with Dial.
Constantly scanning the room, managing perceptions.
Right. The human brain cannot sustain that indefinitely. You will burn out. Fernando is a psychological off-ramp.
The notes say Fernando's core belief is that most problems get easier when nobody has to face them alone.
That is beautiful.
It really is. Imagine a scenario where a friend is going through a devastating breakup. Dial would try to give him a polished 5-step plan to get over it.
Pete would try to make them laugh.
Right. But Fernando just shows up with a peach cobbler, which is his signature food in the text. Yeah. Though he sets up a hammock and sits in silence with them for 3 hours.
Precisely. Fernando turns fun into genuine companionship. He is the antidote to Mac's chronic overthinking.
We all need a Fernando.
We really do. But his shadow does involve a dangerous level of avoidance. Because his instinct is to keep things sunny and simple, the immature Fernando will completely sidestep necessary hard conversations.
Oh, he's the guy who says good vibes only, right when someone actually needs to talk about something traumatic.
Yes, exactly. Toxic positivity.
Yeah.
The immature Fernando brushes the heavy stuff under the rug because he just doesn't want to deal with the friction.
But the mature Fernando realizes that simple kindness can still make room for complicated feelings. You don't have to fix a complex problem to simply sit beside someone while they experience it.
Exactly. You can just be there.
So Pete, Dial, and Fernando manage the external world. They are the social masks. But Fernando's hammock is great for a quiet weekend. What happens when Mac's boundaries are severely crossed?
That's a different situation entirely.
Right. What happens when he is passed over for a promotion, or when the code switching becomes suffocating, or when he feels an overwhelming sense of rage? He can't rely on Dial's polish or Fernando's peach cobbler to get through genuine catharsis?
No, the system has to pivot drastically.
Who takes over them?
This is where we encounter a completely different set of tools. When the social navigators fail, the expressive and cathartic engines take over. The brain needs a pressure valve. Enter Phoebe, JP, and Trey.
Let's start with Phoebe Turner, the metalhead. She is Mac's heavy music emotional outlet. Now, the text portrays her as this avatar of loud emotion and intensity.
Yeah.
But why a metalhead? Why does Mac, this blurred, navigating these complex academic and corporate spaces, rely on this specific aesthetic?
If we look at this through the lens of psychological multiplicity, which is a concept closely tied to internal family systems, or IFS, our brains often create internal avatars that hold the permissions we feel denied in our external lives.
Emissions we feel denied. Okay, break that down.
Society tells Mac that his emotions, especially his anger or his deep sadness, need to be palatable. If a Black man expresses raw anger in a corporate space, society immediately penalizes him.
Oh, absolutely. It's deemed dangerous.
Exactly. So Phoebe is the internal manifestation of the permission he doesn't have. She gives Mac the absolute right to not be pretty.
She takes the pressure and turns it into release through volume. Her quote from the notes is incredible.
Yeah.
Some feelings only become safe after they get loud.
And she finds beauty inside that noise. She uses volume and distortion to create a container for the emotions that are too big for Dial or Pete to handle.
Her symbols are a scratched black guitar pick on a chain and lightning amps. She is electric. She is abrasive.
But there's a softer side, right?
Yes. I was looking at her hidden quirk, and it completely subverts that tough exterior. Despite all this screaming metal energy, she secretly makes surprisingly delicate playlists for the people she cares about.
Because the volume isn't about pushing people away, it is about protecting a very tender core.
Oh, wow.
She builds a wall of sound so that only the people who really care will bother to walk through it.
That's so poetic.
However, her shadow is dangerous. The notes warn that her shadow is self-isolation. The immature Phoebe becomes attached to intensity as the only proof of authenticity.
Right. If it isn't a screaming match or if it isn't emotionally exhausting, she thinks it isn't real.
Exactly.
The mature Phoebe has to learn that intensity is just one language of truth, not the entire dictionary.
Well said.
But if Phoebe is musical rebellion, the next figure is pure, unadulterated, real-world rebellion. Let's talk about JP McCormick, JP the delinquent.
JP is raw volume without the musical container.
He doesn't need a guitar.
No. He represents street rules and the absolute refusal to be domesticated. We are talking battered leather jackets, old burn marks, pyromancy, and motorcycles.
Honestly, reading about JP, he sounds like a walking HR violation.
He kind of is.
He is the part of Mac that activates when he feels disrespected, controlled, or forced into fake politeness.
Let's use an example.
Sure.
If Mac is at a family gathering and an uncle is making wildly inappropriate comments and Dial is trying to politely steer the conversation away.
JP is the voice in Mac's head screaming to flip the dining table.
Yes. Which is an essential protective mechanism. Think of JP as a psychological fire alarm.
Fire alarm. Okay.
When the building is burning, when Mac's boundaries are being actively violated or he is being forced to shrink himself to make someone else comfortable, JP pulls the alarm.
He shatters the polite silence.
He keeps Mac from becoming a chronic people pleaser.
But the shadow of a fire alarm is pulling it just because you are bored or angry or feeling misunderstood. And that is exactly JP's shadow.
Yeah, the text points out that he can become reckless and self-sabotaging. He gets addicted to defiance.
The immature JP thinks, if I'm loud enough, nobody can ignore me.
He assumes that just because he is fighting, he must be right. He mistakes his own adrenaline for moral clarity.
That is a dangerous place to be.
But the mature JP learns a crucial lesson. He realizes being heard matters most when I know what I'm trying to say. He learns to aim his fire to protect the system rather than just burning his own house down.
So you have Phoebe screaming through the amps and JP ready to burn the building down. Those are incredibly internal, destructive energies.
Very destructive.
The third member of this expressive trio takes those raw elements and forces them into the physical world in a way that society can actually interact with. This is Trey Plotba, the street artist.
Trey's the graffiti soul. He represents public creativity and improvisation.
So he takes all that energy and makes art.
He takes the burning rage of JP and the emotional intensity of Phoebe, and he translates it into shared spaces. He makes invisible feelings visible.
That phrasing from the notes, making invisible feelings visible, is so evocative.
It captures his essence perfectly.
Trey's activation happens around murals, urban exploration, and the deep human urge to leave a mark. His signature item is a paint marker that literally changes color based on his mood.
And his quote perfectly captures his ethos. Blank walls are just quiet arguments.
Blank walls are quiet arguments. Wow.
Tree looks at the environment as a canvas for dialogue. Where Dial wants to fit into the room, Trey wants to paint over it.
But Trey is driven by a profound psychological fear. He is terrified that his inner world will pass through life without leaving any evidence.
He is terrified of being completely invisible.
Which naturally feeds a shadow.
Of course. If you are terrified of being invisible, you become prone to impulsivity and attention-seeking.
You just want people to look at you.
The shadow of Trey is becoming more interested in leaving a mark than in understanding its impact. The immature Trey just tags his name on everything. He says, if I don't leave a mark, I wasn't here.
But the mature Tree realizes that the best marks don't just scream, I exist. The best art invites other people to see the world differently. It creates a connection, not just a stain.
If we step back and look at these three, Phoebe, JP, and Trey, we have to recognize something fundamental about human psychology.
What's that?
Operating in this expressive, rebellious mode is exhausting. It burns a tremendous amount of emotional and cognitive fuel. You cannot stay angry and loud forever.
No, you burn out.
The nervous system will literally fry itself.
Exactly. Which brings us to the crucial pivot in Mac's internal system. After the loud expression, the rebellion, the public art, how does the human nervous system actually recover?
It needs to ground itself.
Right. How does Mac ground himself? He does it by tapping into memory, texture, and physical pleasure. Let's introduce the anchors of memory and sensation, Jake and Reese.
The brain seeks grounding. It reaches for safety. And for Mac, one of the safest places is nostalgia. This is Jake Rambo, the retro.
Jake is the nostalgia engine.
Yes. He represents skate culture, old media, analog recording, and meaning that survives the test of time.
Jake loves the emotional residue of old things. He loves the crackle of a vinyl record, the sound of city noise, glass-bottled cherry cola.
His activation is all about songwriting and exploration, anything that gives him a feeling of this specific moment will matter later.
Jake is a defense mechanism against impermanence. In our modern world, where content is scrolled past in a microsecond and trends die in a week, the human brain can feel completely unmoored.
Yeah, we lose our sense of place.
Jake's deep psychological fear is that everything is disposable. His gift is providing creative continuity. He turns fleeting fun into memory and memory into art.
But his shadow is one of the most relatable things in this entire text.
I love this part.
The notes say his shadow is romanticizing the past so hard that he actively rejects new things.
And I love this specific analogy from the source material. It describes him as treating memory like a VIP lounge where nobody new gets in.
It is a brilliant way to describe the trap of nostalgia. Nostalgia can be incredibly comforting, but it can also be a prison.
Because you stopped living in the present.
The immature Jake benches the present. He sits in the corner at a party thinking about how much better parties used to be 5 years ago. He says old stuff is more real.
But the mature arc is recognizing that the real stuff is simply what still matters after time tests it. He learns to let the present happen, to actually participate in it, so that it can eventually become a meaningful memory.
So Jake anchors Mac in time. Our next personality anchors Mac in physical space and sensation. This is Reese Casada, the foodie.
Reese's sensory celebration. He is the mode that turns basic survival, eating into a shared cultural experience.
He makes fun edible.
He really does. He doesn't just want to consume calories. He is interested in what flavor does socially. His quote is, "Flavor is memory you can share."
Which ties beautifully back to Jake. Jake hoards memories, but Reese serves them to other people.
Reese's activation is around cooking, food history, and hospitality. His deep fear is a life of bland efficiency, where meals are treated only as fuel to get back to work.
His signature item in the notes is hilarious, actually.
Oh, the tiny spoon.
Yes, he carries a tiny gold-tasting spoon as a joke. But we know it's not really a joke. It is a symbol of his constant readiness to experience joy.
And his hidden quirk is amazing. The text says he can identify which cafeteria worker made a dish based purely on the seasoning alone.
That level of deep sensory observation connects him intimately to the people and the environment around him.
But we must look at the psychological downside. What happens when sensory celebration goes too far?
What happens when you use sensation to cope with stress?
You eat your feelings.
Exactly. Reese's shadow is using pleasure and indulgence to patch over discomfort. When Mac is stressed about work or dealing with the racial friction we talked about earlier, instead of processing those negative emotions, Reese tries to eat them or party them away.
The immature Reese thinks if it tastes good, it fixes the mood.
Using loaded quesadillas to hide from your existential dread.
We have all been there.
We really have.
But mature Reese understands that while pleasure helps make life beautiful, it should not have to carry the weight of solving all your problems.
It's a temporary fix, not a cure.
So Jake and Reese ground Mac. They give him roots. But roots aren't enough if you never move. A tree is grounded, but a tree never goes anywhere. Life requires action.
Which brings us to the kinetic engines. How does this massive, complex internal system generate the courage and momentum to actually move forward? We look to Tyler and Wessie.
Let's look at Tyler Ward, the daredevil. Tyler is risk, thrill, air, and kinetic confidence. She is the part of Mac that wants height and speed.
She shows up when hesitation feels worse than the potential impact of a crash.
Her core function is proving that fear can be ridden, not merely avoided. Society often treats fear as a definitive stop sign.
Right, don't do that, it's scary.
But Tyler treats fear as a tailwind. Her quote illustrates this beautifully. Fear is just the wind telling you you're moving.
Okay, I have to stop you there. Fear is just the wind telling you you're moving. That sounds amazing on a bumper sticker, or maybe for a professional stuntman, but how is that actually practical for a normal person dealing with anxiety?
That's a fair question.
Because if I feel fear, my brain is telling me not to touch the hot stove.
That is exactly the nuance we need to pull back the layer on. Let's reframe it. If you are standing on the edge of a cliff, fear is healthy. It keeps you alive.
Right. Don't jump off the cliff.
But what if the cliff is just asking for a raise? Or publishing a piece of art? Or being vulnerable with a partner?
Oh, I see.
In those scenarios, fear isn't warning you of death. It is warning you of change. Tyler's energy is necessary because she recognizes that the friction of change feels identical to the friction of danger. She helps Mac lean into the wind of change.
That makes a lot more sense. Her signature item is a pair of cracked flight goggles she refuses to replace, and her hidden quirk is that she writes dramatic last words for minor inconveniences.
That is objectively hilarious. I am stuck in traffic on the 405. Tell my mother I loved her.
It's so dramatic. But that highlights her shadow, doesn't it? Is Tyler just reckless?
She certainly can be. Her shadow is confusing danger with aliveness. She can become impulsive and dismissive of real consequences.
The immature Tyler says, if it scares me, I should do it. That is a terrible metric for decision-making.
Right. Running into traffic scares me. I should do it. No, Tyler, please stop.
Exactly. But her mature form realizes that courage is not blindly leaping at every scare. Courage is choosing the risk that actually matters. She learns to aim her kinetic energy at the challenges that lead to genuine growth, rather than just cheap adrenaline.
So Tyler provides the initial burst of courage to jump off the cliff. But who sustains the run? That is Wessie LeClaire, the speedster.
Wessie is pure momentum. He has athletic flow, quick decisions, and the joy of moving faster than doubt. He creates momentum to prevent the system from stagnating.
Wessie is the one who outruns overthinking. Imagine Max sitting on his couch. Dial is analyzing the social implications of sending a text. JP is angry about the text. Jake is nostalgic for when they didn't have to send texts.
So Mac is paralyzed.
Exactly. Wessie is the part of the brain that bypasses the committee, grabs the phone, hits send, and goes for a run.
His activation is around deadlines, sports, and physical energy. He wears a stopwatch necklace that never seems to stop ticking, and his favorite food is an orange chicken rice bowl. You know, quick, efficient energy.
And his quirk highlights his nature. He secretly times ordinary tasks to compete with himself. He is always optimizing.
But the text delivers an absolutely devastating line regarding Wessie's shadow. It says his shadow is running so fast from discomfort that he calls it progress. Emotionally unavailable, but with excellent cardio.
Emotionally unavailable, but with excellent cardio. That is a brilliant critique of modern hustle culture.
It really is. We often mistake speed for direction. If you are listening to this right now while you are on your morning run or driving to work, ask yourself, are you actually training for a marathon, or are you just running away from an uncomfortable conversation you need to have with your partner?
The immature Wessie says, If I slow down, I'll lose. He is terrified of being trapped in hesitation.
But mature Wessie learns that speed matters most when you actually know where you are going. Momentum doesn't solve everything, but it gets you to the next problem faster.
He needs to balance his movement with reflection, so he isn't just running in exhausting circles.
So now if we step back, we have 10 incredibly potent engines running inside Mac. We have Pete's humor, Dial's polished leadership, Fernando's warmth, Phoebe's intensity, JP's rebellion, Trey's public art, Jake's nostalgia, Reese's flavor, Tyler's daring risk, and Wessie's speed.
I'm looking at this list, and I have to ask, how does this not result in a clinical diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder?
It's a lot of voices.
You have 10 completely different voices screaming for the steering wheel. How does Mac not just shatter into a million fragmented pieces?
It is a vital question. What we are discussing here isn't a clinical pathology. It is a normative psychological framework of multiplicity. But for that system to hold together without shattering, it needs an architect.
A manager.
Exactly. It needs a central processing unit. That brings us to the final and perhaps most vital sub-personality. Luke by Banshee, the box of chocolates.
Luke is the meta figure. He is the identity explorer. His core concept is multiplicity, personality shifts, and psychological depth.
While the others are out there acting, reacting, fighting, and eating, Luke is the one sitting back, writing in his black leather journal while eating Japanese curry, studying all of them.
Think of Luke like the sound engineer at a massive concert.
Oh, I love this analogy.
The sound engineer doesn't play the guitar like Phoebe, and he doesn't hype the crowd like Pete. He sits at the mixing board. He knows that if JP's anger is turned up too high, it will blow out the speakers.
Right.
He knows that if Dial's polish is too loud, the music sounds synthetic and fake. Luke is the one adjusting the sliders, making sure all these parts work in harmony, depending on the acoustic needs of the room.
That is the perfect analogy. He understands the fundamental truth of Mac's system. He shows up around journaling, dream interpretation, and cultural studies. He's the internal analyst. But even the sound engineer has a shadow, right?
Yes. Luke's deepest fear is being forced into one fixed version of himself. So his shadow is becoming so indecisive and overly analytical about all these layers that he loses the courage to choose one in the moment.
The immature Luke sits at the mixing board, paralyzed, worrying, maybe every version of me cancels the others out.
But Luke's mature philosophy is the ultimate aha moment of this entire deep dive. If you take away nothing else from this analysis, take this.
What is it?
Luke concludes, every version is context.
Yeah.
None of them have to be fake.
But let that sink in for a moment. Every version is context. None of them have to be fake. The version of you that is hyper-competent and polished at work is a real version of you.
Yes.
The version of you that is silly, clumsy, and vulnerable with your partner is real. The version of you that is fiercely protective and angry on behalf of your friends is real. They do not cancel each other out.
They are a feature, not a bug. Which brings us back to synthesizing Mac as a complete, healthy human being. The text beautifully calls him a system of truth with rhythm.
Dial makes his authenticity socially confident.
Fernando makes it warm.
Jake makes it nostalgic.
JP makes it rebellious.
Luke makes it multiple.
Pete makes it funny.
Phoebe makes it intense.
Reese makes it flavorful.
Trey makes it visible.
Tyler makes it daring.
And Yessie makes it kinetic.
At his lowest point, Mac uses all these personalities to hide. He says, if I keep them laughing with Pete, maybe they won't notice I'm unsure who I am.
He uses his 11 parts as a rotating series of shields to deflect from his deepest wound. The societal fear that he must translate himself to be accepted. The fear of being too black or not black enough.
But at his healthiest point, when Luke is at the mixing board doing his job, Mac embraces being a remix. He says, I can be funny, black, nerdy, athletic, awkward, emotional, creative, broke, bold, insecure, and still be entirely whole.
He turns category confusion into art. He stops trying to be a contradiction to solve and realizes he is a playlist with range.
A playlist with range. I love that. His final vow in the text is that he will not shrink into the version of himself that makes others comfortable. He vows to be seen without the mask, doing all the heavy lifting.
Which is the true culmination of radical authenticity. It is doing the hard internal work to ensure that when you show up in the world, you bring all of your parts with you, rather than leaving the inconvenient ones waiting in the car.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? The core lesson here is that radical authenticity doesn't mean flattening yourself into one easy-to-digest, perfectly packaged Amazon Prime brand.
And it means giving all your subpersonalities a seat at the table.
It means recognizing their incredible gifts, whether that is Wessy's speed, Jake's nostalgia, or JP's necessary anger. And crucially, it means keeping a very close eye on their shadows so they don't drive you into a ditch.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. We have spent this deep dive mapping out Mac's internal counsel. But what if you mapped out your own?
That's a great exercise.
If you sat down right now and identified your own Dial, your own Phoebe, your own Pete, who currently holds the microphone in your life, and more importantly, who is stuck in the soundproof booth, screaming to be heard, just waiting for you to finally turn their volume up.
Wow, who is in the soundproof booth? That is a profound question to carry with you. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Mac's incredible internal world. Keep exploring your own internal playlist, and remember, you don't have to be a perfectly taped up, neatly predictable cardboard box.
Don't let the world Amazon Prime your soul.
We will catch you on the next one.